No spoilers here. I won't talk about anything that really happens in Shazam, like with the plot or any kind of twists or anything like that. Although I will talk about some of the things that are in the trailers, so I don't really consider that to be a spoiler. So, how generally was Shazam? Shazam was alright. Okay, Shazam wasn't that bad. I think it's not quite the same as the trailers. I'd say the trailers are not a fair representation of the film. It's not that different, but if you've watched the trailers, at least my impression from the trailers was that this would be largely a comedy and it would kind of have a superhero film as a backdrop, whereas it really wasn't. It was more like a more traditional superhero film that has funny stuff in it. So there were funny things in it. I did laugh, but just the way that the trailers were, I guess they picked a lot of the funny bits out. It seemed to me to be more like a comedy. That's what I was expecting, a natural comedy. Whereas this wasn't a comedy, but it has funny bits in it. Okay, so I'm not saying it wasn't funny, but I wouldn't describe the film as a comedy as such. So it was fairly on line with some of the, let's say, lighter-hearted MCU films. So maybe something like Ant-Man. Ant-Man has some sort of comedy in it. It doesn't take itself that seriously. I'd say that's a sort of similar feeling to Shazam, whereas I didn't get that from the trailers. I thought the trailers were more just comedy. And as far as the trailers go, and this happens for pretty much every film, um, they give away the good stuff, unfortunately. So if you've seen the trailers, it does obviously give away a lot of the jokes, a lot of the funny bits in the trailer, the funny bits in the film. There were more funny bits than are in the trailers, but a lot of them are the bits from the trailers. And having seen that, it kind of ruins it, like a lot of films do nowadays. It kind of ruin a lot of trailers, I should say, ruin films nowadays because you kind of know what's happening, or you know what's happening in certain scenes. So yeah, some of the comedy was a bit flatter, I feel, because I had seen it once already in the trailers and wasn't quite as good, I suppose, as it could have been. But again, I think the trailers, at least for me, built it up as being this film's comedy, and it happens to just have the background of a superhero film. Where no, this is a superhero film, and it may have some comedy in it, and I thought it had some comedy in it. Now, if you didn't think the things in the trailer were funny, this film's not for you. Okay, you won't like this film. Okay, so if the bits in the trailer you didn't think were good to laugh at, you won't like this film. The film has not got anything else really going for it if you don't like the trailer. Okay, so when I say the trailers aren't a fair representation of the film, I don't mean if you don't like the trailers, you may still like the film. No, I don't think you will. Okay, if you if you don't like the trailers, you'll hate the film. The best stuff in the film are in the trailers, as pretty much every film does nowadays. So if you don't like the best stuff in the film, I don't think that you'll like the film. I'd say one of the problems the film has is tone. It's very dark. The first really 40 minutes of the film is quite dark. Again, I was expecting a light-hearted comedy, and especially the first 30-40 minutes, it is not a comedy. This is not a funny film, and the film is very dark. I don't know if there were a lot of rewrites or if anything happened with the directors or anything like that, but the film did feel like it had comedy, but that was maybe added later, or the dark stuff was added later. There was a general split in the feeling of the film, and again, it was quite dark. The start of the film was way darker than I thought it'd be. Now, I'm not saying it's a super dark film, but I went in again thinking that this was a very light-hearted comedy, and this is indeed not a light-hearted comedy in any way. Again, I'm not saying it wasn't funny, but this isn't just a sort of family comedy film. This has got some darker elements throughout the film, throughout the start, and there are funny bits in it, but the film itself isn't funny as such. There are lots of funny bits in the film. Okay, the main guy, Zachary Levi. I've got IMDb open to know what I'm talking about here. Zachary Levi. He was in Chuck. It's a shame they didn't get the female in Chuck in this film as well, but he was in the series Chuck. Zachary Levi, he's pretty good. So he's good as the lead role in Shazam, and definitely you need something like that to make a film work. The lead person in the film was very good. Another problem with the film is the person that plays his younger version. Again, I hope I'm not really giving away too much by talking about things that are clearly in the trailer, but Billy Baston is his name. He's played by an actor here called Asher Angel. He's the young kid, and then he gets the power of Shazam, and he's able to transform himself into big Zachary Levi. there's a big disconnect between the two of them. So part of it's probably the writing, but also just the acting ability. Zachary Levi as the superhero is exactly, well, not exactly, but it's basically what you see in the trailer, okay? It's this kind of fun, awkward, doesn't know what he's doing, very clueless kind of guy playing a child. Whereas when it's the actual child playing the child, it seems like a completely different character. Now, sure enough, it's not got the superpowers, but the character's just kind of brooding and angsty. But then as soon as he gets the powers involved, he's sort of like fun-loving. And yeah, it is two completely different characters. Maybe the transformation that makes him strong and all the other powers also changes his personality. That would be what happens. Okay, his personality does change as he goes from the sort of troubled, angry kid to the superhero. So that for me, I thought, I mean, it's difficult to do all the time. You know, two different actors and so on, two different ages. But I think the film might have been better if once he transformed, he wasn't really transforming back. Again, I hope that's not really much of a spoiler if you've seen the trailers. But it's not a case of he's suddenly turned into Shazam and that's it, he's now Shazam from there on. He's switching back and forth throughout the film, and I felt a real big disconnect between when it was, you know, one actor playing the character and a different actor playing the character. It felt like a completely different character. The film has a lot of similarities with the old Tom Hanks film Big, where Tom Hanks, well, a child plays a 13-year-old, I think, and then he wishes he's bigger, and then Tom Hanks plays a sort of 30-year-old version of that. But in Big, Tom Hanks goes on to work at a toy factory or a toy conglomerate, a toy corporation, and he becomes an executive. Whereas this, the kid becomes a superhero. So it's a bit more of a fun story than the actual overlying story of Big. But I could see that there's a lot of similarities between the two, having a child suddenly not be in the body of a child, but doing sort of things that they didn't think they were able to get away with. Like, I don't know, for example, in one of the trailers, in fact, in all the trailers, I think there's a bit where he rocks up to some sort of quickie mart and says, "I'd like to purchase your finest beer." You know, that's, first thing one of the first things he thinks of doing once he's in an adult's body. Now, I'm sure most people are going to want to compare this film to Captain Marvel. Okay, and obviously he was kind of called Captain Marvel at some point as well. But, you know, how is this film compared to Captain Marvel? What have you got here? And also you got the DC versus MCU rivalry and so on. Is this film better than Captain Marvel? Is this film not as good as Captain Marvel? What's going on with this compared to Captain Marvel? Obviously this film hasn't got the overt social justice warrior bit kind of attached to it because Zachary Levi didn't really come out and say some crazy stuff about white men and so on, like Brie Larson did. But as far as the film, I know he did do a bit of white knighting and he tried to protect her and so on, and it seemed like he has absolutely no idea what goes on in the world. He was reading some weird quotes somewhere, and anyway, it was a big mess. But the film itself obviously has a male in the lead role, so it's not going to get all the protection from anywhere. If people put in a bad review, this will have a bad review. I'd say one big flaw that Captain Marvel has, putting aside the writing or acting, is there was no antagonist. Okay, it was a superhero film without a supervillain. It's cliched that that's what you get, and maybe you can say it was a fresh look because there wasn't someone for Brie Larson to fight, there wasn't someone for Captain Marvel to fight, but it's kind of what's expected in these things, okay? Captain Marvel has no one to fight in the film, and conquers no one and just beats up plebs the whole time. Beats up plebs from the start of the film, beats up plebs from the end, and there's no character arc at all. And that's, for the 3 people that saw my Captain Marvel review, you'll know what I feel about Captain Marvel. There's no growth. There's nothing there. It's quite a poor film. This film is not like that, okay? This film is not that bad. So, is this better than Captain Marvel? Well, if you think that Captain Marvel didn't have a story arc and didn't have anyone to defeat, then you would, likewise with myself, not like Captain Marvel, and you will like this film more. Okay, this film has a bad guy, a clearly defined bad guy. The bad guy has powers, as you see them in the trailer, and the bad guy is, stronger than Shazam, and hopefully it's not really a spoiler that somehow Shazam does win in the end. The good guy wins in the end. I hope that's not considered a spoiler. But there is a character arc, there is some growth. It's not overtly complicated, but that's where you get most of these superhero films. So as far as the sort of superhero template goes, Shazam is fairly ordinary in that you've got a character without powers, the character gets some powers, the character has a bad guy to defeat that also has some powers. Captain Marvel doesn't have that. If you think that Captain Marvel was refreshing because it didn't go down that template, then this goes down the template. You won't like Shazam. Now, I think Captain Marvel failed because it didn't go with the template for being a superhero film. That's, the big concern. But anyway, is this better than Captain Marvel? In my opinion, yes, it is. I wouldn't call this a great film, though. I'm not saying that this is absolutely fantastic. And again, I didn't think Captain Marvel was absolutely terrible. I just thought it was fairly ordinary and had nothing going for it. This, I think, is better than that. So yes, I think Shazam is better than Captain Marvel. Now, at the same time, I think Captain Marvel smashed it at the box office. Okay, Shazam has had nearly no publicity. It is so dead. There is no one talking about Shazam. There may be comic book aficionados talking it up and DC fans, but the general public has no idea about this film at all. I saw the film around about the same time as I saw Captain Marvel. I saw it in a, I don't know what you call it, an advanced screening, and there was less than 10 people in the screening I saw it in. Okay, Captain Marvel was about 90% full when I saw it. I think I saw it on a few days before it was really opened up. I saw it then. Not that I have any special access. The tickets are available for anyone to get if you want to get them. But Shazam, there was no one in there at all. It was absolutely empty. I'm not sure if I've been in a more empty cinema watching a movie ever. And this isn't like this film is 3 months into its run and everyone's seen it. This is before its actual official release date. So no one is talking about Shazam. Shazam has got no buzz about it. I don't think anyone's interested in the film at all. It's something you should see because if you're going to go to the movies right now, it's all you've got. Okay, there's really two films going right now. It's Captain Marvel and Shazam. And although I've said Shazam's better than Captain Marvel, people have probably already seen Captain Marvel. Okay, a lot of people have seen Captain Marvel. It's on or just over $1 billion at the moment. And so, no one would ever see that film twice, I don't think, Captain Marvel. So what else are you going to see? I wouldn't see Dumbo, but Shazam's there. So Shazam should get all of the business for new people going to see the movies. I know that they were predicting about a week ago that it would open to about $40 million, and I thought that was extremely low. I thought, gee, how could it be that bad? But just the buzz around the film, it could go worse than that. I don't know what it'll open to, but from the very anecdotal evidence I have from one cinema, it's absolutely empty. And just from talking to people I know, no one really knows what this film is and what it's about. So if you're following films, you would have heard of it. If you know about some comics, you might have heard of it. But other than that, the film has got no buzz and has no interest. Maybe it's something similar to Alita Battle Angel. No one really knew anything about that and heard about it, and it didn't really do great things in the box office anywhere except for in China. So maybe China will do good numbers for this. I did have a video put out a week ago or so saying that it's possible that this will beat the opening day record for Aquaman. Not record, the opening day numbers for Aquaman. I believe that could still be true, as bad as I'm saying it looks. Aquaman didn't have any country in the world opening with the US except for China. And so Aquaman missed out on about a third to a half of its opening day money because it didn't actually open at the same time. Shazam, they've lined up all their ducks in a row for this film, and it's going to get all the money. So although Shazam in theory will open to less money in every market than Aquaman, perhaps, because they've got them all lined up over the weekend, just like Captain Marvel did. If you get all the countries lined up for the week, then you can put in big money, even though it's not really as big as it sounds, because a lot of films don't get to line everything up. But anyway, it could have a fairly good worldwide opening, but just from what little I saw, it looks catastrophic. It looks like a massive fail. Not because the film's good or bad. No one knows about this film, really. But obviously when the real weekend starts, that's when people will actually start seeing the film. But for a kind of pre-ticket before the start, I don't know, I thought it would have been on par with Captain Marvel. I thought it would have been about 90% full or more. And as I said, maybe 10 people were in there. I'm not sure. I didn't really count, but it was very few number of people. You could individually hear where people were laughing from in the film. It was nearly embarrassing because you could tell who found some bits funny and who didn't by where the laughter kind of came from. So it was a very strange experience being in a very empty cinema, particularly for a film as it's being released. So I think the film is worth watching if you want to go see a film right now. If you're under any kind of fear that you will get superhero fatigue before Endgame comes out, I would avoid it. I would avoid this film. It's not worth wasting your Endgame time to see Shazam instead. But if you want to see a film this weekend or this week, I don't think there's any other competition to go see. I don't think there's any choice but to go see Shazam, and I think the film was alright. I don't think it was great, don't think it's a classic film, but it wasn't bad, and I think it was definitely better than Captain Marvel. I know that's what a lot of people are going to want to hear, and there's going to be a lot of people not wanting to hear that as well, but that's what I think. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.